How did your daughter react when she found out about period poverty? Saturday afternoon. My 10-year-old daughter, Zara, comes home with a lot on her face. I know this face. This is the face of someone who learned something today that rearranged things. She drops her bag. She sits at the table. She says, Mom. I say, yeah. She says, did you know some girls miss school every month because they can't afford period supplies? I say, yes. She says, every single month? I say, yes. She says, so they fall behind every month because of something their body does that they can't afford to manage? I say, that's what period poverty is. She says, Mom, how is that still happening? I don't have a clean answer. I say it's a gap people are working to fix. She says, are they working fast enough? I say, honestly, no. She is quiet. She says, how much do the supplies cost? I tell her roughly. She thinks. She says, that's not much money. I say, for some families, it is a lot. She goes to her room. She comes back with her money jar. She puts it on the table. She says, how much is enough for 1 month? I tell her. She counts from the jar. She puts the amount aside. She says, I want to give this to someone who needs it. I say, there are organizations that collect. She says, can we find one now? We find one together. It's local. It collects for girls in our area. She reads the whole website. She says they also need volunteers. I say, you're 10? She says, I know. She says, I can still give money? She can. We donate together. She watches the confirmation screen appear. She says, okay. She looks at the jar. She puts the rest back. She says, Mom. Yeah. She says, every month I'm putting some aside. I say, okay. She says, not a big amount. She says, just consistent. She says, the problem is consistent, so the help should be too. I look at my daughter. She is 10. She just created a personal monthly donation on a Saturday afternoon without being asked by anyone. She says also. She looks at me. She says, some girls at school might not say anything if they're struggling. I say yes. She says, I'm going to keep extra in my bag. She says quietly so nobody has to ask in front of people. I say, that's a very good idea. She nods. She starts homework. After a while, she looks up. She says, Mom. Yeah. She says, I'm telling my friends too. She says, not in a big way. She says, just so we all carry some. She says, 5 girls with extra means someone always has what they need. I look at her. I say, that's exactly how big problems get fixed. She says, what? By 5 girls with extra in their bags. I say, by enough people deciding it's their problem too. She nods. She goes back to homework. My husband comes in later. He sees the donation on screen. He says, what's this? Zara says, period poverty. He says, I know what that is. She looks at him. She says, good. She says, I donated this month's allowance. He says, okay. She says, I'm doing it every month. He says, okay. She says, you could match it? He looks at the screen. He looks at her. He says, yeah, I could do that. She opens her notebook. She writes, Dad matching monthly. She slides it to him. He reads it. He picks up the pen. He signs it. She photographs it. She puts the notebook away. She looks at him. She says, starting next month. He says, starting next month. She nods. She goes back to her homework. She doesn't say anything else. She just adds it to the list of things she's decided and moves forward. That's the thing about Zara. She doesn't announce. She just does it and makes sure someone else does too. All hail Zara. Age 10. Monthly donor. Bag carrier. She solved it locally first and made Dad sign the commitment.